Kenya is at a big decision point. It is now a special friend of the United States, which could mean a better future, or maybe not. The whole world is watching closely. Will this friendship help Kenya, or will it just help the US? This new friendship is very tempting. Kenya could get a lot of help with its military, trade, and investments. The US promises to help fight terrorism and keep the region stable. This could change everything for Kenya. It could bring a time of great wealth and safety. But what will it cost? People are right to be careful. History shows that powerful friends can sometimes be tricky. These friendships often come with hidden conditions, secret deals that can hurt a country's independence. Kenya must be very careful. It should learn from others' mistakes. This doesn't mean the friendship is bad. It could be good for both Kenya and the US. The decisions made now will affect the future for a long time. The relationship between the US and Africa has been fraught with complexities. It is a history marked by both cooperation and exploitation. Colonialism cast a long shadow over the continent. It left behind a legacy of economic dependence and political instability. The US, while not a colonial power in Africa, has often played a paternalistic role. It has sought to shape the continent's destiny to suit its own interests. During the Cold War, Africa became a battleground for ideological supremacy. The US and the Soviet Union vied for influence. They propped up dictators and fueled proxy wars. This further destabilized the region and hindered its development. The end of the Cold War brought new hope, but it also brought new challenges. The US emerged as the sole superpower. Its foreign policy in Africa shifted towards counterterrorism and promoting democracy. However, these initiatives have often been criticized for being heavy-handed and ineffective. They have been seen by some as a new form of imperialism, a way for the US to maintain its hegemony over the continent. Kenya must ensure that this alliance is based on mutual respect and shared benefits, not on coercion or dependence. The US has made no secret of its desire to counter Chinese influence in Africa. China has become a major player on the continent. It has invested heavily in infrastructure, energy, and mining. This has raised alarm bells in Washington. The US sees China's growing presence as a threat to its own interests. Kenya, with its strategic location and growing economy, is a valuable prize in this geopolitical chess game. By forging closer ties with Kenya, the US hopes to contain Chinese influence. It wants to maintain its dominance in East Africa and the Indian Ocean region. This is a key motivation behind the new alliance. But America's interests in Africa extend beyond countering China. The continent is rich in natural resources. It has a young and growing population. This makes it an attractive market for US goods and services. The US is also keen to tap into Africa's vast potential for economic growth. The new alliance with Kenya should be seen within this broader context. Kenya is but one piece in this intricate puzzle, a pawn, some might say, in a game played by superpowers. President Biden has promised a new era of US-Africa relations. He has vowed to treat African nations as equal partners. He has pledged to support their development and security. But are these promises sincere, or are they merely empty rhetoric designed to appease and manipulate? Only time will tell. Actions speak louder than words. The true test of Biden's commitment will be in the policies he pursues. Will he prioritize Africa's needs, or will he continue to put America's interests first? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. We're interested to see what you guys think. And while you're at it, please don't forget to subscribe and like. Now, let's get to our topic. Kenya must scrutinize the terms of the alliance carefully. It must ensure that it serves its own national interests. History offers valuable lessons for Kenya as it navigates this new alliance. There are cautionary tales of countries that have become entangled in US alliances. Countries like the Philippines, Pakistan, and South Korea. Countries that have paid a heavy price for their loyalty. The Philippines, once a US colony, has been a staunch ally for decades. Yet, it has received little in return. Its economy remains weak. Its people continue to struggle. Its sovereignty has been compromised time and again. Pakistan, another key US ally in the war on terror, has also faced its share of challenges. It has become a breeding ground for extremism. Its democracy has been weakened. Its people have suffered immensely. South Korea, while economically prosperous, remains dependent on the U.S. for its security. It has become embroiled in the U.S.'s rivalry with North Korea. Its people live under the constant threat of war. These are just a few examples of the potential pitfalls of aligning too closely with the U.S. However, there are also examples of countries that have benefited from U.S. alliances, countries like Japan and Germany. These examples offer a glimmer of hope. They show that it is possible to forge mutually beneficial partnerships with powerful allies. Kenya stands at a pivotal juncture. The choices it makes today will shape its future for generations to come. It must weigh the potential benefits of its new alliance with the U.S. against the potential risks. It must chart a course that safeguards its sovereignty, promotes its development, and advances its interests. This will require a delicate balancing act. Kenya must engage with the U.S. from a position of strength. It must be willing to negotiate hard and stand its ground. It must not be afraid to say no to deals that are not in its best interests. At the same time, Kenya must not shy away from cooperation when it is mutually beneficial. It should leverage the opportunities presented by the alliance to advance its own development agenda. This is a defining moment for Kenya. It is a time for bold leadership, strategic thinking, and a steadfast commitment to the national interest. The world is watching. The specter of neo-colonialism looms large over Kenya's new alliance with the U.S. Neo-colonialism, in essence, is the continuation of colonial exploitation without direct political control. It is a system where powerful nations use economic, political, and cultural means to maintain their influence over former colonies. Critics argue that U.S. engagement in Africa often takes a neo-colonial form. They point to the fact that U.S. aid often comes with strings attached. They highlight how U.S. corporations often benefit more from trade deals than their African counterparts. They question whether the U.S. is truly committed to supporting African democracy or whether it simply seeks to install pliant regimes that will serve its interests. These are legitimate concerns that Kenya must address head-on. It cannot afford to ignore the historical context of its relationship with the U.S. It must be vigilant in guarding against any form of exploitation or coercion. It must ensure that its partnership with the U.S. is based on mutual respect, not on a hierarchical power dynamic. The legacy of colonialism is a heavy burden to bear, but it is a burden that Kenya must confront if it is to truly chart its own course. Kenya's new alliance with the U.S. presents an opportunity to rethink traditional models of diplomacy. It is time for African nations to move beyond the old paradigms of dependence and alignment. It is time for them to forge a new path based on self-reliance, solidarity, and strategic partnerships. This means prioritizing pan-Africanism. It means strengthening regional institutions like the African Union. It means working together to address common challenges such as poverty, inequality, and climate change. It also means diversifying partnerships. African nations should not limit themselves to traditional allies like the U.S. or former colonial powers. They should explore opportunities for cooperation with emerging economies like China, India, and Brazil. The goal should be to create a multipolar world where African nations have a strong voice and agency, a world where they are active shapers of their own destiny. The world today is a turbulent and uncertain place. The old certainties are crumbling. New power dynamics are emerging. In this fluid and unpredictable environment, it is more important than ever for nations to safeguard their sovereignty and protect their interests. For Kenya, this means pursuing a foreign policy that is rooted in pragmatism, not ideology. It means being guided by national interests, not by the dictates of any external power. It means being willing to engage with all actors on the world stage, but doing so on its own terms. The new alliance with the U.S. should be seen through this lens. It is an opportunity, but it is also a challenge. It is an opportunity to leverage U.S. support for Kenya's development goals. But it is also a challenge to ensure that this support does not come at the cost of Kenya's sovereignty. The Kenyan people must hold their leaders accountable. They must demand transparency and accountability in all foreign policy decisions. The future of Kenya depends on it. Before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want weekly world updates, check out our newsletter, link in the description, and make sure to watch this next video. Good night, good morning, and good afternoon. See you next time.